Welcome back to Leia's Library. Find yourself a cozy corner, get yourself something to drink, and let's get started. This is part 2 of my favorite queer books. Last time we looked at Sapphic and Achillean books, and today we'll be looking at my favorite books that have trans or n/or trans n/or non-binary characters. Let's get started. First on the list is When the Moon Was Ours by Anna Marie McLemore. There are so many loud cars today. Am I missing something? Anyway, this is a YA magical realism. It follows Miel and Samir. They are as strange as they are inseparable. Roses grow out of Miel's wrist, and rumors say that she spilled from a water tower as a child. And Samir, is known for the moons that he paints and hangs around the town, and also for how little anyone knows about him or his mom's lives before they moved to this town. But as odd as everyone considers them, even they stay away from the Bonner sisters, who are rumored to be witches. And now the Bonner sisters want the roses that grow out of Miel's wrist because they think that their scent will convince anyone to fall in love with them. And they're willing to use every secret that Miel has fought to protect in order to get them. So this book is on the list because Sam is a trans boy. This book is one of the most beautifully written books I've ever read in my whole life. It's one of those books where I would say it was written like a painting. It's beautiful and artistic, and it just paints such a vivid image with words. And I really want to see more of this author's work, because if they're all written like this, I'm a fan. I'm such a sucker for pretty writing. Here are some examples. This was just the dedication at the beginning. To the boys who get called girls, to the girls who get called boys, and those who live lives outside these words. To those called names, and those searching for names of their own. To those who live on the edges and in the spaces in between, I wish for you every light in the sky. This is another passage that I just really, really liked, so I'm going to read it to you. It shouldn't have mattered, not when Miel and the other girls in his class wore jeans more than they wore skirts, not when they told their brothers what to do and borrowed their father's books. But there was everything else. The idea of being called Miss, or worse, Mrs. The thought of being grouped in when someone called out girls or ladies. The endless echoing use of she and her, miss and ma'am. Yes, they were words. They were all just words. But each of them was wrong, and they stuck to him. Each one was a golden fire ant, and they were biting his arms and his neck and his bound flat chest, leaving him bleeding and burning. He, him, Mr., Sir. Even teachers admonishing him and his classmates with boys settle down or gentlemen please. These were sounds as perfect and as clean as winter rain, and they calmed each searing bite of those wrong words. Beautiful. Miel and Sam are two fascinating characters. They work really well together, and the story is always strongest when it focuses on them and their relationship. I will say that I do find some things to be very repetitive. It felt like a couple scenes kind of repeated themselves, maybe 2 or 3 times, which I didn't think was necessary. It could have been so good if only it had just been edited just a little bit more. The writing also, even though it's stunningly beautiful, sometimes drew scenes out a little bit longer than they needed to be, and I found myself wishing they'd kind of hurry things along at some points, but I still highly recommend it, if only for the beautiful writing, but also Miel and Sam. I just love them together. Next up, we have Dreadnought by April Daniels. This is a YA superhero / sci-fi. This follows a teenage trans girl named Danny, who ends up unexpectedly inheriting these powers of the world's most powerful superhero, Dreadnought, and the power transforms her body into what she's always thought it should be. So now, unable to hide the fact that she's a girl, Dani has to figure out how to navigate her life in her new body, as well as fend off the evil cyborg who killed Dreadnought, named Utopia. Dani's journey is just so incredible. Watching her come into herself and into her power is just... I just love her so much. This series is incredibly well written. The characters are amazing. I just really can't say enough good things about it. And I will be talking about this series more in another video, so I won't go into it too much here, but I love these books a lot. Next up, we have Dragon Pearl by Yoon Lee. It is a middle grade science fiction. This follows 13-year-old Min, who comes from a long line of fox spirits. But since fox spirits are very heavily prejudiced against, Min's mother insists that Min doesn't use any of her fox spirit magic, and just all of them have to appear human all of the time. Min feels very trapped at home because of this, and she longs to join her brother, who is in the Space Forces, so that they can both travel and explore the 1,000 worlds together. And the 1,000 worlds is the kind of the name of this world that they live in. But when her brother is suspected of leaving his post in order to go treasure hunting for this powerful object known as a dragon pearl, Min takes it upon herself to track him down and prove his innocence. So it's not Min, but one of the other main characters is non-binary. And what I really liked about that was that in this world, being non-binary is very normal. It's not out of the ordinary at all. No one ever bats an eye about this character's gender, and just, ain't that just so nice? I love that. The story is very cute, and I don't think I mentioned it before, but it's based on, or it's inspired by Korean folklore. So it's this really neat blend of this old folklore in this very science fiction, futuristic setting. So yeah, very cute story with an NB normalized society. What more could you ask for? So we have two honorable mentions. These are honorable mentions because they include they include trans or non-binary characters, but they are not necessarily main characters, and their transness, or yeah, I guess their transness doesn't really impact or affect the plot. It's more sort of a character thing. And I really like these stories just in general. And as a bonus, representation. So the first one is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. It is a historical retelling. It is a Romeo and Juliet retelling set in 1920s Shanghai, where our Romeo and Juliet are heirs to two rival gangs. So in this story, one of the important side characters is a trans woman. Her transness is brought up, and we do hear her thoughts on the matter, but it's not a central part of the story. But it is still a very prominent aspect of her character, and yeah, I really like it. And I really like this series. I do recommend these books, as long as you don't mind violence, because they can get quite violent. And next up, we have A Psalm of... I always skip this one. A Psalm of Storms and Silence by Roseanne A. Brown, which is a YA fantasy. This is a sequel to A Song of Wraiths and Ruin, and this series is a West African-inspired fantasy. And I won't go too in-depth on the plot because I talked about this book not too long ago in another video, but they're very, very good. I really enjoyed this series. And the sequel, which is A Psalm of... No, I can do it. A Psalm of Storms and Silence, has a non-binary... I can't talk today. It has a non-binary character that I really, really liked, who's also coded as being autistic. Although I can't speak to that representation because I myself am not autistic. But I am an NB, so I really liked this little bit of representation. They're not a necessarily main, they're a side character, and they're not necessarily central to the story, but they're quite often, and I really enjoyed their characterization. And those are all the books on the list for today. I know it's not a whole lot. Unfortunately, I haven't come across many books with trans or non-binary characters, but I am always on the lookout for some. So if you have any recommendations, please put them down in the comments, and I will check them out. And let me know what you thought of these books, or if there are any that you're interested in checking out. Follow me on Instagram at Leia Like the Princess, where you can also find my little store, Moonlit Cat Creations, or you can go directly to the website at moonlitcatcreations.com. And you can tip me on coffee if you like. No pressure, only good vibes. Links for all of those down below. And stay cozy.